Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Welcome back. If you've watched or followed the show for some time, you are probably familiar with my guest this week. I have Kasia returning to discuss some exciting things going on in your world. You have a website up and running, and you have some programs that we're going to dig into. And as always, I'm a big fan of what you do on LinkedIn. So I always like to kind of have you on to dig a little deeper into some of the positivity and the things that you do to help people overcome some of the challenges that they can in the workforce that are brought on by different factors that they can control. So thank you so much for returning.
Of course, it's always my pleasure. I'm all about empowerment and, helping people realize that they hold more power than they may initially think,
Yeah,
or believe even. So,
yeah,
always a pleasure to be back.
absolutely. Yeah, so let's jump right into it. You've got a powerful story of hitting burnout, and just want to kind of dig into that. What happened in your life? Take us back and kind of walk us through the journey, and what really led to you trying doing some self-reflection in terms of what was burning you out, and how you could make a change in your life at that time.
Yeah, great question. I think we've all probably experienced different levels of burnout, challenging moments in one's life, whether it's related to work or not. But for me, it was really when I graduated and came out of school. I was in my first professional role, call
Mhm.
it. I was maybe a little too ex not excited, but too confident in my ability, of being in professional sales. And I thought that there was no way I wouldn't crush it. And the reality is that I had a really difficult time stepping into that role, and it was unlike anything I had experienced in the past. And so within a few months, like my performance was zero, basically. I hadn't really had um, much or any success in terms of the role and in booking meetings and in trying to, just develop new opportunities for the business. And that led to constant anxiety. I was breaking out in hives, full body hives. I say that with a smile because it's funny looking back, but it was horrible in the moment. And at one point, I was like hiding in the bathroom at work just to like catch my breath and just to calm myself down. Looking back, I was definitely on the verge of a panic attack, like whenever I was in the office. And, um, that's, I think, a reality for many people, whether or not it gets to that point, of being, so dramatic or not. But, um, it was just so uncomfortable. I would get home at night and I would, smoke weed and just numb out with Netflix. And there was like, I didn't realize that I held the ability to change my circumstances.
Right.
But anyway, so it looked like I had it together from the outside looking in. I was like managing it, but I was emotionally and like spiritually a wreck
Yeah.
inside, at work, everywhere. I just kept it in, and I think that's like the mask that a lot of people can relate to.
Mhm.
So eventually I, started to hit my breaking point, and I was like, I can't keep going like this. This is the worst trajectory to be on. And I realized that it wasn't a productivity issue. It wasn't a knowledge issue. It wasn't that I didn't know how to talk to people being in sales. It was a capacity issue. It
Sure.
wasn't about productivity. It wasn't about any of that. It was about like what was my capacity to handle life.
Mhm.
And tied to that was my connection to myself and how I was very, very disconnected from my own style of, being successful in the role. And I was just trying to copy other people and mimic what they were doing, and it just wasn't the right, way to go about it. So all in all, you hit that breaking point and you start to do the deeper work. I started to do the deeper work. It's past mindset. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's deeper than reciting your story, to someone a couple of times, and then getting someone else's perspective on it.
Yeah.
It really was about how can I take action to change my circumstances? And that's when I found the realm of energy and spiritual healing and just receiving these sessions that were healing deeper layers of myself that I didn't even know existed until
Mhm.
that moment. And the world opened up, everything started to flip. work life changed. I had more capacity. I felt like life became spacious.
Yeah.
I think that was what I was really looking for, and I didn't know how to find it.
Yeah. And thankfully you did then. And so,
Yes.
and I mean, if people have followed you or, are familiar with your content, I think they've kind of heard or seen you say that burnout isn't necessarily about time, it's about energy. So let's dig into that. What are you meaning when you say that in terms of, you're not just wasting time, you're wasting so much more than that when you're burnout.
Mm, love this question because we all know those people who talk about, I slept 9 hours and I'm still exhausted. And it happens, maybe it was like low quality sleep every once in a while, but I think that at the root, there's a larger issue.
Mhm.
And, rest, the physical rest we know, right? Like sleep, it doesn't restore you if your energy is constantly leaking, if you are engaging in things that you don't want to be engaging in. It's very practical stuff. It just, you layer on the word energy and people, get a little confused sometimes. But it's really about like being in alignment and not engaging in things in ways that you don't want to. You know what I mean? What are the things that are draining you and why do you keep engaging in them, to this extent that it's affecting your ability to output results or, conversations or just a general sense of well-being? Because where we place our attention, which you can think of as energy, that's where, your outcomes come from, right? And so when your output, the things that you're doing, your actions, when all of this is misaligned or when it's greater than your capacity to hold it as well. We all know about like your capacity to take in new information or to hold money and like not spend it the moment it hits your bank account. So it's the same thing when we talk about managing energy versus managing necessarily time, right? So at the end of the day, I feel like a lot of the productivity hacks and the time hacks that I was taught, they're band-aid solutions. And people kind of at that last stage of trying to figure something out when the reality is it's actually a lot deeper than that. And it starts earlier because it has to do with how you're living your life, right? And your priority management. I talk about what are your priorities and how are you living life around them.
Right.
So recalibration is the real and the root work, you
Mhm.
know? That's
Absolutely.
my take.
Absolutely. So, what does it actually look like then to be in alignment at work? And, how do you people know how to identify that if they're not in alignment with themselves?
Alignment is when your actions, when your energy, and when your values are all moving in the same direction.
Mm.
You know, if they're moving in slightly different directions, what happens is that there tends to be that internal conflict that comes up.
Right.
And when that internal conflict comes up, that's when we start to see the energy leaks come in, or when we start to notice that our attention is being, misplaced, or that our priorities are a little bit out of whack compared to how we want to live and where we want to be seeing them, right?
Right.
So, um, you can really think of it as like your values in action. So the way that you're actually taking action on the things that you hold true and very close to yourself. It also has to do with, like not procrastinating on the things that are important to you. And I've been there. I still struggle sometimes with procrastinating, but it's just how much are you letting it run your life versus having it be something that happens every once in a while. Um, alignment and aligned action, it feels energizing. It's not draining. So we've kind of talked about that already, but we're not around people who make us feel like we're, on the wrong path, or we have to be a perfectionist, or they've got it all figured out and no one's being vulnerable and talking about the things that they had to overcome to get to that point. For example, right? There's so many different ways to look at this. Um, but that's kind of what alignment is. And even at work, in my opinion, it's like where are your boundaries at play? You know what I mean? We need boundaries because they protect us and they protect our energy and they allow us to live a life in integrity,
Mhm.
right?
Definitely.
So again, long-winded way of saying it's when your thoughts, your energy, your actions, your values, all of this is moving in the same direction. If you say that you want to build a business and every single day you're doing things that are not related to building a business, you're not really in alignment. And so I would challenge someone like, do you really want to build a business? Do you want things that come with it without doing it? Because your actions are showing that you want not a business, right? You don't want to have a business. So, um, self-reflection is really key to
Absolutely.
understanding if you're aligned.
Definitely. Definitely. Now, you work with a lot of high achievers. So what would you say are some of the common red flags that show when someone's, stuck in that survival mode and, they're
Yeah.
still performing, but there's that aspect that they feel like they're not. What are some of the common things that you're working through with them?
Two main themes with high performers. The first is the identity that they have is around what they can do. It's an over-functioning identity. It's the fact that they have to keep it together. It's the fact that people are depending on them and they're the provider. And it's not gender-based, but I work with a lot of men and often it's this pressure that they
Mm.
put on themselves. Potentially there are external factors impacting this as well, but like it really is an identity that they've taken on, right? I
Right.
talk about the mask, so it's not even that they're a dad or, a director of sales. It's like they have taken on all of the burden to provide for everybody in their life.
Mhm.
And that's to an extent, it's helpful because it brings on the fact that you have to get better than
Yeah.
yourself and your circumstances, but it can also be very, very harmful if it's not kept in check, if it's not metered, and again, if that alignment isn't there, and if there aren't other parts of yourself that you've explored,
Yeah.
right? Because you're not just one identity,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
You're a lot deeper than that. And then the second piece is actually really interesting, and I related a lot to this, especially at the beginning, was adrenaline addiction.
Mhm.
People don't really talk about it yet. I haven't seen many people talking about it. It's like thriving on 10 cups of coffee. I thrive when I, get my daily like caffeine dose, or I can't function before 10 a.m. without my
Right.
caffeine,
Yeah.
right? You hear
Yeah.
that a lot.
You're a
It's
lot.
very
Yeah.
normalized. It's very normalized. And then another one is, oh, I'm just going to wait till the last minute because I thrive under pressure,
Yeah. Definitely.
especially for like, certain groups. They really feel like I'll just wait until the last minute and pull it together. And of course, again, there are circumstances where sometimes you have to wait until the last minute.
Mhm.
But if you're consistently getting work done by waiting until the last minute, you are burning out your adrenals.
Yeah.
And that leads to health problems. Like it's not even just about are you in alignment anymore? It's like your physical health will suffer,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And so, the people who say that they thrive under pressure, under chaos, um, that's actually like um again kind of a mask or kind of um uh a band-aid that they're putting on the fact that they don't want to address the deeper issue at play, which is I either don't have my priorities in order, I am too afraid to get this work done because it might not be my best, and if it's not perfect, it's not, good enough. All these like core beliefs that people shape their life from, it's actually played out in actions. So the things that we believe are played out in our actions. And in working with someone like myself, we can help identify what those deeper beliefs are. And then, of course, I've got the tools to help heal those, those beliefs. And at a certain level, mindset work will work,
Mhm.
right? Because if you repeat something enough, but if you're not doing the work to untangle the beliefs that aren't, serving you,
Yeah.
then no amount of positive like reinforcement or affirmations will help cover that because now you've just got two that are contradicting
Right.
in your kind of like mind space, and you're holding on to two things that actually can't be true at the same time, which actually causes more pressure and more discomfort and less alignment.
Mhm.
So that's my take on mindset work. It's very important, don't get me wrong, and it's an aspect of what I do. It's just not the only thing. And so I'm always wary of just mindset coaches, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So something you said earlier, I wanted to kind of dig into when we got to
Yeah.
that question, just because you're talking about the people that you work with, and you mentioned that you noticed this in yourself very early in your career. So would you say that the clientele that you're supporting are in that kind of same stage, or are you seeing more people coming to you that are kind of later on in their careers and looking for kind of a shift? What does that breakdown look like?
That's a really great question, Matt. Um, I work with a lot of people who are a few years or multiple years into their careers, usually around the 10-year mark, and they've made it to some form of leadership or
Mhm.
even senior leadership. And usually a theme that happens is that something changes in their home life, and then that affects their work life in a way that, oh my gosh, the title that I have at work doesn't really matter, or, I've been putting in all this work and it's led to, challenges outside of work. And they just start to realize that all that work that they've put into establishing this professional identity is not the whole piece of the pie or not the whole piece of the puzzle.
Right.
It's important. And we want to be proud of what we do, of
Hmm.
course,
Yeah.
but there's a trade-off,
Yeah.
right? And so if we're not managing the things that are really important to us while also trying to build our careers, that's when people hit a really challenging point where they feel like they're on the edge of, a meltdown or a breakdown. They're usually doing the similar things as I said around like running to the bathroom to just like either have a quick cry or,
Right.
take a couple deep breaths. Um, and like I mentioned, I do tend to work with many men because men don't know where to go
Hmm. Yeah.
and don't know where to go, even if they've tried therapy. I've heard many of my, clients say that, I tried it and it was great and it helped a little bit, but like I kind of knew all of this and it just kind of felt like I was repeating the same story and we were just going deeper into pieces that I didn't, you know, want to keep digging into, which
Right.
I think is fair because not everything has to be processed
Mhm.
mentally.
Definitely.
One thing that I share often with my clients, but also on socials, is like there are two ways to lead our life. You can lead it from the mind, and the mind is very logical and it asks a lot of questions and it is trying to take you away from pain. It helps you avoid pain.
Hmm.
And I learned this from one of my teachers. And the second way we can lead our life is from our heart.
Hmm.
And so when we lead from our heart, the heart is about feeling and expression and intuition and having a really strong connection to yourself and trust in yourself that you're like, oh, okay, because the heart takes you towards joy.
Hmm.
And you cannot live a life where you're avoiding pain and trying to chase joy. The two are mutually exclusive.
Right.
It's one or the other. And a lot, especially a lot of men tend to be living from up here.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
when they're living from here, they can't live from here and they lose some of that intuitive connection and mm, because men do tend to be very logical, they want to understand everything and why. And so again, so certain modalities help for that. But at the end of the day, dropping into your heart space and living life as much as possible from there, the world opens up. Relationships get better, work flows easier without you trying harder. It's and it's very easy. It's not super complex. So, I hope that answered the
Yeah.
question,
Oh
like
yeah,
in terms
absolutely.
of, yeah, I work with a little bit of everyone, early stage, like folks in their career as well, who are like, I don't know if this is what I wanted to do, and I spent all this time studying. Um, And so every approach is a little bit different, and that's why I run my clarity calls, so I can learn more about, who's seeking some guidance.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of guidance, you have a one-on-one program called the recalibration. So, how does that really help people when they come to you and say that they need to shift out of burnout for good? What are some of the ways that they can utilize this program to, take the steps towards that?
Yeah, great question. My flagship program, my creation, the 8 week, it's an 8 week healing program
Mhm.
for anyone who's really stuck in stress or fatigue, ongoing fatigue, or that they have this overwhelming feeling that there's something more and they just haven't been able to find it. It is in person. The work that I do is very important for it to be in person. So I work predominantly with people in the Toronto, Canada area.
Mhm.
But there are aspects of this that can, be open to anyone,
Mhm.
regardless of where they are. And the main thing with the recalibration is that it's not just the mindset piece. It's not just um, addressing things at the mental level. It's a strategic energy reset that helps clear away stress. It helps people feel more clear on their next steps and on their purpose. It helps them with that connection and that trust back in themselves.
Mhm.
Alignment, right? So everything that we've talked about. And the amazing thing about this program is because they are in-person healings, there is an aspect of like practical takeaway work that we do. So there is like it's homework, but it's not really
Right.
stuff that makes you feel like, oh man, I got to do this. It's very exciting. But for the most part, people come and receive these healings, and that's really all that they have to do because as a society, we're obsessed with adding more and more and more. And the morning routine list is getting longer and longer. And
Yeah.
now you've got a 3 hour morning routine before you even hit, the gym to go to work.
Right.
And so the beautiful thing about these healings is that it's something you come and you receive, and your capacity for life expands through this. A lot of beautiful things flow from it. I've seen absolute miracles time and time again with these different healings, specifically with the life activation. And everything from the emotional realm, clearing away the clutter that's on your mind, all the way to physical, health issues I've seen addressed by this as well, because we're talking about the root cause. We're not talking about the symptoms. And usually by the time something is physical, it's a symptom of a deeper problem.
Right.
So, in a nutshell, combining spiritual healing tools with, actionable work and, of course, monitoring and supporting my clients all the time. I really want to help people build lives that they love. And it's possible a lot of the times we have to open up a little bit more
Mhm.
in terms of what we think will help us get there. Everyone wants like a playbook and just follow these three things and you'll have it. And honestly, this is as close as you're going to get to it. It might not make sense to your logical mind, though.
Mhm.
We're
Right.
not talking about the logical aspect anymore. We're talking about the heart.
Absolutely. So for someone who's listening now and feels kind of off track, what's, the one thing that you can say, here's an easy, or not easy, here's a way that you can start, doing things today and start your recalibration.
I love that. What a great question. A lot of the content I put out is tailored towards sharing practical, actionable steps that people can take. So definitely follow me. I'm on Instagram, on LinkedIn. I'm starting my YouTube channel very soon for it'll be Corporate Healing, the Corporate Healing podcast.
Awesome.
Um, and but when it comes to what a person can do right now to shift, everything starts with awareness. Without the awareness and without being radically honest with yourself on what the state of your life is, where you're satisfied with it, where you're not satisfied, what you want to create, why you want to create it. When you're honest about how you're feeling in the day to day, and of course, the things that you want to bring into your life, that is your power.
Mhm.
If you're not clear, clarity and awareness, if you don't have that as a fundamental piece or a foundational piece, you will not create what you want to create. And even if you get what you wanted, it's going to be distorted in
Yeah.
some way because you haven't taken the time to clarify exactly what that looks like.
Hmm.
So, in order to do that, right? Okay, maybe it's some kind of like a journaling session. Maybe you create that, that circle with the eight pieces of your pie, and you're looking at relationships, and you're looking at family, and you're looking at work, and you're looking at hobbies, right? So we all know, like, there's different aspects to life. That's a really great exercise.
Yeah.
Looking at what you want to create. Also, auditing your energy, paying attention to what drains you versus what energizes you,
Hmm.
right? What replenishes you. Oftentimes it's people. People are a really big piece of this. You will spend time with someone who just you're leaving and you're feeling so excited about the next thing that you're building or the next time you get to see them. Or you're tired and you just need a nap right away and you're not excited for the next time you see them. Paying attention to these cues, your body is always talking to you. And so that's where the intuition really comes into play. You learn to trust yourself when you listen to yourself,
Yeah. Absolutely.
right? And then the last piece, the third thing I always say is don't think about what you have to add, think about what needs to go. What is not serving you right now? Is your 3 hour morning routine helping you or is it burning you out? Could you do with an extra hour of sleep in lieu of like, a 45-minute like cold shower? I don't know. Right?
Right.
Hopefully no one's doing that. That
Yeah.
sounds kind of crazy. But it, it's it's all about honesty with yourself. And one of my teachers always says, you are your biggest enemy,
Hmm.
but you're also your like biggest healer in a
Yeah.
way. And you are the only one who can get yourself out of that prison that you've put yourself in.
Hmm.
And a lot of people are living in self-imposed prisons right now
Yeah. Absolutely.
from a corporate lens and more. So yeah, just some feedback. The super easy, practical things that people can take away.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have your website up and running now, and I know you mentioned that there's a lot of stuff that you do in person and the importance of that. So for people who are visiting the website, what are some of the resources that you have there? What are some of the things that they can kind of take advantage of if they're
Yeah.
visiting, if they're not in the Toronto area?
I love that. Thank you, Matt, for the opportunity to even share that.
Yeah.
So my website is corporatehealing.co, and it feels like my baby that I've been nurturing a long time. So one of the main ways that I support everyone is through free Monday meditations. They're called Max Meditations. It's a meditation style that anyone can do, and it works for everyone because it goes through a very like easy process of relaxing the body, then relaxing the mind, then going into different stages of meditation. And it's free every Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, starting the 7th of July. So I think that's next Monday. Um, and so you can register on the website. There's actually going to be under book your session, there is like a running tab that'll let you sign up for that. I also have some resources where you can learn a little bit more about the work I do, about how I work with different organizations, and how I also support people one-on-one. E- You know, the thing is, I have studied in a lineage, and the beautiful thing about that lineage is that it's worked for thousands of other people, right? It's not like I came up with this in my backyard and I've decided it's Cash's way. But there are hundreds and thousands of teachers and healers across the entire world. So even if you can't work with me, you can still have access to these different healings. The life activation, Spark of Life is a distance healing I offer as well. So that's one way I can support. It really helps with the physical realm. Oftentimes, if anyone's admitted to the hospital, this can be a really powerful tool. Um, but yeah, one of my mission was to help everyone.
Hmm.
My mission is to help everyone who wants it and who wants to heal and who wants to, level themselves up in this way by addressing these aspects. And so, um, it really has to do with what is accessible to everyone. Even if you're not in Toronto, you can still access some of these tools. So I urge you to reach out to me through LinkedIn or Kasia Pelkovsky, or through my website. There's a little chat feature, and you can say, I live in Pennsylvania. I live in Romania. I'm looking for, someone. Can you help connect me? It would be my honor. So this
Awesome.
is, yeah, for everyone.
That's fantastic. Well, as always, Cash, it's great to catch up with you, and I'm always so thankful when you can take some time to join us on the show. So, if you are not following, connected with Cash, and make sure you're doing that. Check out the website and explore those resources, the free resources. Free is always good, right? So, take advantage of that. And I'm sure we'll talk again soon. But thank you everyone for watching, for listening, and we'll see you next Monday.
Thank you.